Why did Inde Navarrette walk away from Heat 2 to join Marvel's X-Men? This is one of the most interesting casting decisions of 2026, especially because just weeks ago, it looked like Navarrette could have been heading in a completely different direction. After her breakout performance in Obsession, the 25-year-old actress suddenly found herself being considered for major Hollywood projects. Two of the biggest opportunities were Michael Mann's Heat 2 and Marvel Studios' upcoming X-Men reboot. And for a while, it looked like either project could become her next major role. Navarrette actually met with both directors. She met Michael Mann, the legendary filmmaker behind the original Heat, and she also met Jake Schreier, the director of Marvel's new X-Men movie. Then came the major announcement. At Disney's 2026 D23 event, Marvel officially revealed its new X-Men cast. And there she was, Inde Navarrette as Rogue. The announcement immediately changed the conversation, because reports now indicate that Navarrette is no longer moving forward with Heat 2 because of her commitment to X-Men. But why choose Marvel over a Michael Mann movie? And what does this decision tell us about where Navarrette's career is heading? Let's break it down. First, we need to understand just how quickly Navarrette's career changed. A few years ago, most viewers knew her as Stella de la Cruz from 13 Reasons Why or Sarah Cushing from Superman and Lois. She was talented, but she wasn't yet considered a major Hollywood star. Then came Obsession. The horror movie became an extraordinary breakout success, and Navarrette's performance as Nikki Freeman turned her into one of the most talked-about young actresses of 2026. That success completely changed the kinds of opportunities available to her. Suddenly, major directors were interested. Major franchises were interested. And Navarrette found herself in a position where she could actually choose between several high-profile projects. That's where Heat 2 entered the picture. Michael Mann's Heat 2 isn't just another sequel. The original Heat, released in 1995, became one of the most respected crime films of its generation. It starred Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and became famous for its complex characters, crime world realism, and iconic action sequences. Mann later expanded that world through his 2022 novel Heat 2, which serves as both a prequel and sequel to the original movie. The upcoming film adaptation is expected to explore younger versions of characters connected to the original story while also continuing the narrative after the events of the 1995 movie. So getting a role in Heat 2 would have been an enormous opportunity for Navarrette. And it's important to emphasize something. Navarrette didn't simply audition for Heat 2 and then get rejected. She was reportedly on the shortlist for a significant role. Recent reports identify the character as Charlene, a role that Navarrette was being considered for before ultimately leaving the project because of her X-Men commitment. That makes the decision much more interesting, because Michael Mann's film would have offered something that Marvel can't necessarily provide. Prestige, a major filmmaker, a serious crime drama, and the opportunity to work with one of the most influential directors in modern American cinema. So why choose Marvel? The biggest answer is probably the scale and long-term potential of the role. Navarrette isn't just joining a random superhero movie. She's playing Rogue. And Rogue is one of the most recognizable characters in X-Men history. That means Marvel isn't simply giving her another supporting part. It is potentially giving her a character who could appear across multiple movies for years. Marvel officially announced Navarrette as Rogue alongside Sadie Sink as Jean Grey, Kit Connor as Cyclops, Maya Boyd as Storm, Samara Weaving as Emma Frost, Christopher Abbott as Professor Xavier, and Adam Driver as Mr. Sinister. The film is currently scheduled for May 5, 2028. And that long-term commitment is probably the key. Heat 2 could have been an incredible movie, but Rogue could potentially become a franchise-defining character. If Marvel's X-Men reboot succeeds, Navarrette could play Rogue through several films. She could appear in crossover projects. She could become one of the central faces of Marvel's mutant universe. That's an entirely different career opportunity. And there is another important factor: timing. Navarrette is currently at the exact moment when an actress needs to decide what kind of career she wants. She has already proven she can deliver a breakout performance in a smaller movie. Now she needs to decide whether she wants to become a prestige film actress, a franchise star, or ideally, someone who can do both. Marvel gives her enormous visibility, but it doesn't necessarily mean she's abandoning serious acting. In fact, Navarrette has repeatedly talked about wanting to prove that Obsession wasn't simply a one-time success. After Obsession became a huge hit, she reportedly began meeting with some of Hollywood's biggest filmmakers. Michael Mann was one. Jake Schreier was another. She also mentioned directors such as Ryan Coogler and Greta Gerwig among filmmakers she would love to work with. That tells us something important about her ambitions. She isn't simply chasing the biggest paycheck. She's looking for filmmakers she respects. And that makes the choice of X-Men particularly interesting. Because Jake Schreier is not just directing a generic superhero movie. He previously directed Thunderbolts for Marvel, and Marvel clearly has confidence in his ability to build a new corner of the MCU. The new X-Men movie is also being written by Lee Sung-jin and Joanna Kahlo, with the project positioned as Marvel's major introduction of the X-Men into the MCU. For Navarrette, this could be the beginning of a completely new phase of her career. There's also the character herself. Rogue is an extremely complicated role. In the comics, Rogue has the ability to absorb another person's memories, abilities, and powers through physical contact. That means the character can be emotionally complicated as well as physically powerful. She can literally carry pieces of other people inside her. That gives an actress a lot to work with. And it's one reason Rogue could be a much more substantial role than simply another superhero character. Navarrette also has experience playing emotionally complicated young women. She did it in 13 Reasons Why. She did it in Superman and Lois. And she took that experience to another level with Obsession. Rogue could allow her to combine all of those skills. There's another fascinating part of the story. Before Marvel officially announced her as Rogue, there was widespread speculation that Navarrette might be playing Mystique. Some of that speculation was fueled by Navarrette herself. She had previously talked about Mystique as a dream role and confirmed that she had met with Jake Schreier. That led fans to assume she might become the new shape-shifting mutant. But Marvel's D23 announcement revealed something very different. She was Rogue, and that may have been the role she was actually discussing with Marvel all along. Now, put that together with the Heat 2 situation. Navarrette had two potentially career-changing opportunities. One was a prestigious crime epic from Michael Mann. The other was a massive Marvel franchise. She chose Marvel. The other was a massive Marvel franchise. She chose Marvel. And reports suggest the reason was ultimately her commitment to X-Men. This doesn't necessarily mean she wanted Heat 2 less. It may simply mean the schedules couldn't work. That's an important distinction. There is no indication that Navarrette disliked Michael Mann or rejected the movie because she wasn't interested. In fact, the fact that she met with Mann shows that she was genuinely considering it. The problem was that she couldn't realistically do both. And when you're offered a role like Rogue in the MCU, you have to make a decision. Marvel projects often involve long production schedules, promotional commitments, and potential future appearances. A franchise role can require an actor to plan years ahead. That makes scheduling extremely complicated. So Navarrette appears to have made a strategic career choice. She chose the role that could potentially define the next decade of her career. And that is why the headline in Navarrette left Heat 2 for X-Men needs a little context. She didn't necessarily abandon Heat 2 because Marvel was simply a bigger paycheck. She appears to have chosen Marvel because Rogue offered something Heat 2 couldn't. Long-term franchise potential. Imagine where this could lead. If the new X-Men movie becomes successful, Rogue could become one of the central characters. She could appear alongside Jean Grey, Cyclops, Storm, Professor Xavier, and eventually, potentially, other major Marvel characters. That could put Navarrette in the same conversation as some of the biggest young stars in Hollywood. But there is a risk. Franchise roles can sometimes define an actor too strongly. If Navarrette spends years playing Rogue, audiences may begin to associate her almost exclusively with the character. That's why her future choices will be important. She will need other projects between Marvel films. And considering her recent success, she may have plenty of opportunities. Recent reporting says she has already been receiving major offers and has reportedly turned down other projects as she focuses on her new career trajectory. So this isn't necessarily the end of her relationship with filmmakers like Michael Mann. It's simply a decision about timing. Heat 2 could still be a major movie, but X-Men could potentially become a major chapter in Navarrette's career. And there is one more reason the decision makes sense. Navarrette is only 25. She has time to do both. She doesn't have to choose between franchise movies and prestige films forever. Right now, she can establish herself as Rogue. Then, as her profile grows, she can return to the kinds of challenging dramatic roles that first attracted directors like Mann. In fact, being part of Marvel could make those opportunities easier to obtain. That's exactly what happened to many actors before her. A major franchise can give an actor enormous visibility. The challenge is then using that visibility to choose interesting roles. And Navarrette appears to understand that. So, why did Inde Navarrette leave Heat 2 for X-Men? The current reporting points primarily to scheduling and her commitment to Marvel's X-Men. She had been in consideration for a role in Michael Mann's Heat 2 and met with Mann. But once her commitment to Marvel became real, she was no longer moving forward with Heat 2. And now we know what she chose instead. Rogue. For an actress coming off a breakout performance in Obsession, it is an enormous opportunity. Heat 2 could have given her prestige. X-Men gives her scale. And if Marvel's New Mutant Universe becomes the success the studio expects, Inde Navarrette may have just chosen the role that transforms her from a breakout actress into a genuine Hollywood franchise star. The decision may have closed one door for now, but the door she chose to walk through is potentially much, much bigger. Inde Navarrette isn't leaving Heat 2 because her career is slowing down. She's leaving because, right now, her career is moving faster than almost anyone expected.